I will.
So, yeah, so first of all, you must go do that.
Hello and welcome. Let us begin with a prayer. Judith, would you lead us in prayer, please?
Lord, we thank you for choosing to bless us as a nation. Our founding fathers knew the importance of seeking your guidance to the many questions surrounding the birth of our country. We were then, are now, and will always be one nation under God. We've gathered here today, Lord, because our hearts are restless and we're hungry for answers, for positive change, and for hope. Lord, we call upon you today to guide us in this meeting and give us the strength that is needed to preserve this great nation.
Thank you.
Amen.
Is there a veteran that would probably lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Ray, are you muted?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Very good. I trust everybody can hear me now. Thank you for joining us today, and thank you to our friends from Facebook that are also following us. Technology is a wonderful thing. For those of you that do not know me, my name is Ray Savadny, and like many of you, very concerned about the direction our country is heading and our future. I have one son who has a lovely wife, the son and daughter-in-law I'm enormously proud of, and they have a brand new baby, their first, about 8 weeks old. I'll show you a picture later if you'd like. I'm retired from a marketing career, and in my free time I enjoy general aviation, learning, and an active lifestyle. And I also want to thank with us today, with big waves, Judith, nice big wave, John, we have Rick, Gretchen, and Doug is floating around here somewhere, so thank you to the volunteers. We are all unpaid volunteers that are dedicating our time and our talents to help to restore our country. During our time together, I intend to give you a better understanding of voter integrity and the problems of an out-of-control federal government, the solution, how the solution works, our plan, and how you can become involved. If you're unfamiliar with being active, don't worry. Judith and I, different location, not very long ago, we're sitting about right there. I think by the end of our time today, you're going to have a pretty good idea, pretty good grasp of the basics, and leave excited, because I'm going to show you there's hope. We have hope. If you have questions, please make note and save them till the end. Your 11 Minnesota state representatives and senators have been invited. One responded with a regret that Representative Garofalo couldn't make it because of a previous commitment, but wants you to know that he is in support of what we are going to discuss today. With a show of hands, don't be bashful, who here would like to see the voter rolls cleaned? Thank you. Who here would like to see term limits on Congress, federal judiciary, and bureaucrats? Who here would like to see the power and jurisdiction of the federal government limited? Who here would like to see fiscal restraints imposed on the federal government? We're in the right room. Let's begin locally and talk about election integrity. Americans support cleaning the voter rolls. To restore election integrity, it's complicated and there's many steps. But the first and most important is to clean the voter rolls. 85% believe there should be a system to ensure registrations are removed when a voter moves. 78% support verifying voter rolls twice a year to help people who've moved update their registration. 73% support verifying voter rolls twice a year if it helped prevent voter identity theft. Now, as we sit today in Dakota County, what in the world can we, us little people, just citizens, do today to help get election integrity? Today, you can sign this postcard that is addressed to the Dakota County Election Director. And the postcard simply says, please clean the voter rolls. Now, I can't imagine over past years that the Dakota County Election Director got very many citizens sending them a message saying, clean the voter rolls. But now we know there's a problem. There's always been a problem, but now it's become quite evident. In 2020, in Dakota County, 38.9% of ballots were not aligned to an active voter at the time of certification. Think about that. We can do something to begin the process. Now let's turn our attention to the federal government. The federal government is out of control. The wonderful news is we can do something about it. But before we get into a solution, let's spend a few minutes and look at how we got here in the first place. Some of what I'm about to show you may be quite revealing. Convention of States Project was designed to address the three biggest problems facing and in Washington, D.C. Debt and spending, federal overreach, and career politicians. We'll take these one by one. Problem one, national debt and federal spending. No matter who's in office, whatever they're labeled, Democrat, Republican, Independent, it keeps going, spending keeps going up and up and up. Buzz Lightyear said to infinity, right, and beyond. So I'm making a little humor here, but there's no evidence that this is anywhere close to stopping. And all of this spending is jeopardizing our children. And not only our children, it's jeopardizing our grandchildren. And now as we go to the grocery store, it's jeopardizing us right now today because the can has been kicked down the road for so many years. Intuitively, even if you're not an economist, you know that it's not right. And Medicare is projected to be depleted by 2026 and Social Security by 2034. This is a site that tracks U.S. debt. Some of you may have visited before. This is a screenshot, and it was taken March 18th. How many days ago was that? That was last Saturday. That was a week ago. And if you went to this site live, all the numbers that are in the boxes, they spin as an odometer spins. And some of them, you wouldn't believe it, you get dizzy. They spin, spin, spin. Now, for our discussion today, I'd like to call your attention to three numbers. The first in the top left-hand corner, and that's our deficit. A little small. There we go. Could somebody help me, please? Could somebody read that number nice and loud, please? Go ahead.
Me?
Yeah, please.
31 trillion, 624 billion, 202 million, 585,502.
That's right. That's right. That's a big number to get too cold. So very good. 31 trillion, 624 billion, 202 million, 585,502 dollars. That's our deficit. And that was as of last Saturday. Some of you might remember it wasn't very many weeks ago. A little bit of the news said It was about to go over $30 trillion. Remember that? It was just a few weeks ago. And now we're approaching $32 million. You can think of that deficit as America's credit card. And if you have a credit card, and that's the second number that I'm going to show you right here, and that is the interest that's on the credit card. If you have a credit card and you don't pay off the balance each month, what happens? You pay interest. America's credit card pays interest too. Could somebody read that number for me, please?
544,743,041,964.
Very good.
You're right.
Very good. 544,743,041,964. You did good, Cole, on a number like that. Folks, that's over $500 billion. $500 billion. That's just on interest. Go to this site live, and the number just spins. The third number that I'm going to show you is in the lower right-hand corner, and that is our unfunded liabilities. Could somebody help me with this number? Come on, be brave, come on, go ahead.
182,296,551,984,045.
Very good, thank you. 182,296,551,984 and $485. Folks, that's almost $200 trillion. If you have a home or a property and you have a mortgage, you can look at this as America's mortgage. Are we going to hand this off to our children? There's no stopping this. Problem two, government overreach. There are many ways that Washington abuses its power, but one of the most egregious happens every day in the federal judiciaries, the federal bureaucracies, and that is the laws made versus the regulations dispensed and the growing Constitution. If you look at the image on your left, there's a small pamphlet that is leaning up against a big book. That pamphlet is the original United States Constitution, and with the amendments, 7,000 words. It's leaning up against a 3,000-page book that includes all of the court rulings. How come I don't have volume? Rick, can you help me?
I put it work last time.
Okay, start again. A little louder.
People that are frustrated in Washington, D.C.
Thank you.
often say, well, they don't follow the Constitution anyway. Not true. They follow the wrong one. They're following the Constitution as interpreted by the Supreme Court, rather than the Constitution as written.
This, taken out of my pocket, is a pocket constitution. 4,000 words in the original document, 4,400 words. If you count the amendments, we're talking about 7,000 words. But here is the Constitution in force today. This is 3,000 pages of Supreme Court rulings showing what every ruling has done to the original words. This isn't going to get any smaller. In fact, every time they publish this document, they leave a bunch of blank pages at the back for additional rulings that they know are coming. Every page in this document means a grant of power to the federal government. Understand that this is the Constitution in operation today. And unless we change it, unless we make its wording crystal clear, we're going to continue to operate under this document. forever and ever until the whole house of cards comes falling down.
I'll bet someone can help me with this. What is one word that could describe this image? And Doug, could you dim the lights, please? All of them. Could somebody give me a word that would describe that image?
Swamp.
What did I hear?
Swamp.
Yes, that's right. Bingo, you got it. But there's an actual term for the swamp or deep state. Some of this, for some of you, this might be revealing, and that's the administrative state. Who here has heard of that term before, administrative state? Administrative state began largely during the New Deal. And what it did is it took the three traditional functions of government, the ones that we learned about way back when in civics, and we think we still operate under today, the legislative, the executive, and the judicial branches, and it's reduced them to two, politics and administration. And what this change has done is it has, the nature of lawmaking has been completely changed. Congress started passing laws that are vision statements, and then they hand to the bureaucracies big bills that they can interpret the way they want. And I'm going to give you an example. I'm going to see how many of you remember this. A few years ago, Obamacare was being hotly debated. ACA was about this thick. Getting feedback, sorry. About this thick. And at a news conference, a reporter asked Nancy Pelosi, "What's in the bill?" Anybody remember this? What's in the bill? And what did she say?
You have to pass it to find
You have to pass it to know what's in it. That's right. And so people laughed. They scoffed. They chuckled. They couldn't understand that. It didn't register. But what she was saying was, we're going to take this vision statement and we're going to dole this out to the various bureaucracies, unelected bureaucracies, and they're going to interpret the way they see fit. That's who's running our lives, are unelected bureaucrats. And have anybody over the years that have gone to vote, year after year after year, vote, and said, what am I doing this for? I vote, and nothing happens. Anybody feel that way? Well, there's a reason for it. And that's because American citizens, us, we've been disenfranchised. We're out of the picture. Policy is made outside of the legislative process, and it's made by the bureaucrats. That's why we feel so impotent. The administrative state is extra constitutional. Problem 3, career politicians. Just look at how long these folks from both sides of the aisle have been in Washington, D.C. The longer someone is in Washington, D.C., the more they smell like, talk like, look like, and vote like the swamp, because they get entrenched in the bureaucracies and the special interests. And this has gone on for a long time, and it's going to continue to go on for one reason, because we, the people, let them. Folks, we have the power here. Some of you, I apologize for depressing, but you can't fix a problem unless we understand it. The Convention of States offers a 3-part plan. First, what did the founders say? Implement Article 5 of the United States Constitution, which the founders gave us, and accomplish our plan. The founders gave us Article 5 of the United States Constitution for the exact reason, the precise reason we're sitting here in this room today. Article 5 of the United States Constitution offers a single best remedy that for the crisis that we're living through today. Please, if you'd like, you can read along with me. The Congress, whenever 2/3 of both houses shall deem it necessary, shall propose amendments to this Constitution or on the application of the legislatures of 2/3 of the several states, shall call a convention for proposing amendments, which in either case shall be valid to all intents and purposes as part of this Constitution, when ratified by the legislatures of 3/4 of the several states or by conventions in 3/4 thereof, as the one or the other mode of ratification may be proposed by the Congress. Whew. Eyes have glossed over. Let me show this to you visually in a flow chart, and it might become even clearer. Article 5 is made up of two paths. The first is through the United States Congress. And we're going to, today for our discussion, we're going to use the very, very first amendments to the United States Constitution as our example. The United States Constitution became effective on March 4th, 1789. And at that time, 12 amendments, proposals and amendments were discussed. And having passed, at least a 2/3 majority of both houses became what is known as a proposed amendment. They then went to the states, voted on by the state legislatures, and ratification is necessary by at least 3/4 of the states. And slightly over 2 years later, on December 15th, 1791, 10 amendments, 10 of those proposals became amendments, and we know them today as the Bill of Rights. That's right, bingo, good deal. Now there's a second path. This is elegant. This is genius how this was designed. But there's a second part that's equally as genius, and that is through us, the citizens. We, the citizens, we petition our state legislators to vote for a resolution calling for an Article 5 Convention of States. Once 34 states or 2/3 pass that resolution, it comes out and a convention is called. At the convention, delegates propose, debate, and vote on the amendments. Amendment is passed when a simple majority of the state delegates vote for them. Then coming out of the convention, they then become proposed amendments. The proposed amendment then follows the same path as if it had come out of the United States Congress. Folks, this is our chance. We have the power. How many people know about this? We, in our everyday lives, things are so bad, but we have a way to fix this. After the proposed amendments then go to the states, they're voted on by the state legislatures, and if they are ratified by at least 3/4, then they become amendment to our Constitution.
September, 2 days before they signed the document, the end of 4 long, hot months in Philadelphia. They were ready to go home. But George Mason noticed that Article 5 only had a single method for amending the Constitution. He said, wait a minute, what if Congress becomes an obstacle?
It was given to us by George Mason, who said, look at guys, someday this government's going to abuse its power, and there won't be anything for you ever to ratify if it's counting on Congress to reduce the power of the federal government. So we need to give the states the ability to reduce the power of the federal government.
Our plan is simple. Use Article 5 of the United States Constitution as the founders envisioned. We believe that the federal government has gone off the rails, and we want to encourage the states to use their power under Article 5 of the United States Constitution to get our nation back on track. This is the application for a convention of states under Article 5 of the Let me call your attention to Section 1, and feel free to read along with me if you'd like. The legislature of the state of Minnesota hereby applies to Congress under the provisions of Article 5 of the Constitution of the United States for the calling of a convention of the states limited to proposing amendments to the Constitution of the United States that impose fiscal restraints on the federal government, limit the power and jurisdiction of the federal government, and limit the terms of office for its officials and for members of Congress. How about a round of applause? How about this? We have a chance. I don't know of any other country in history that has had the ability to do what we're talking about doing today. It's in our hands. We're building the nation's largest grassroots army, and we want you. We want you in the army. No calisthenics necessary, no sit-ups, no push-ups, no cutting the chocolate, none of that, but just the heart to know we've got a problem and we want to fix this mess. We have volunteers and leadership teams in all 50 states. We have over 5 million volunteers and supporters and over 1,700 district captains in state house districts across the country. You're a district captain, I'm a district captain. And it's working, the plan is working. The momentum is building. So far, 19 states, nearly 60%, have passed a resolution. You're joining the Army at the right time. And it is widely supported. In a nationwide survey of likely voters, 2/3 support calling for a convention of states. It would be even higher if we can do more of these workshops. It's bipartisan. 50% of Democrats, 81% of Republicans. And the reason it's bipartisan is because we're bringing power back from the federal and we're bringing it to the state. And for us as citizens, it's much more granular. They're much more in touch with what we want. Some of the more notable names that you might recognize. For a fuller list, you can certainly go to our website. In conclusion, get involved. How much longer can we let this mess go on? And there are 3 ways. The first and most important is sign the petition and the postcard today before you leave. Become a volunteer. And if you're able, contribute. We've laid out the problem. We've offered a solution. The most important and immediate things that you can do now, today in Dakota County, is to sign the petition and the postcard. Become a volunteer. Certainly, there's a role for you. We have many that will be able to use your time and your talents. And if you're able, contribute. All of the materials that you see here today, it all come out of our pockets. This is a grassroots effort. This is a bottom up. This is not top down. So if you can throw in 5 or 10 or 20, help us continue this so that we can do this more locations and attract more people. Or whatever you can afford. That would really be appreciated. There's been a petition signed in every every petition signed is a contact with your legislator, and we have petitions signed in every House district, state House district in America. Our volunteers will have paper petitions for you to sign, or if you prefer, you can use your phone, use that QR code, take you right online, you can sign the petition right online. I'd like to conclude and finish with two thoughts. And I want to say this in a way that it resonates with you, that it reaches you. We all have a question here in this room to answer. Do we want to leave our beautiful United States of America in a better place for our children and grandchildren as the one that was given to us by our parents and grandparents? Chokes me up. Or said another way, are we going to give them this mess when we have this available to us? To quote John F. Kennedy, if not us, who? And if not now, when? That's it. Thanks for your time and attention. We'll take questions. John? Lights? Doug? Lights? Yes, sir.
Yeah, is there a way to make more public these cards you fill out for your county you live in, or the whatever it was, but can you make it a printable version? Someone can go online and print that card out themselves and then send it in?
Today, we're doing just to Dakota County.
Yeah.
And answering this Dakota County, and we have postcards here that we can distribute for you.
But
for
people
other-
aren't here though.
Yeah, for other counties, we hadn't thought that far to that conclusion. There's certainly, it's available digitally, but let me give that some thought. I think we could do that. I think we can do that. And we do have postcards here for you to fill out. Election integrity is a big topic. It's very complicated if you've done any kind of looking into it. But every solution starts with cleaning the voter rolls. And that is here, right here, where we are. Thank you for that question. Yes, ma'am.
So I have a couple questions about cleaning up the voter rolls. And I don't know if, you can have any insight into this or can help us at all. But like several months ago, it was before the election, I started getting mail from people who had never lived at my address.
Mm.
And I know they never lived there because we bought the lot, we built the house. I don't know these people. So I returned to sender, no such person at this address. They would keep sending them. I finally opened one and I called the marketer who was sending it and asked where they got their
Good for you.
mailing list. And he couldn't answer that. He just wanted to know if I was the person that it was addressed to, and I said no, and he ended the call. And I said no, I said that's why I'm calling, because I'm not this person and they've never lived at this address. And then the call ended. So is there any insight into how that happens?
How it happens, I don't know.
Yeah.
But I do know that there is a number of organizations. One seems to be leading, Minnesota Election Integrity Solutions, MIN-EIS, that is locally here, that is doing great work on exactly that. And they have on their site, they have a place that you can report things exactly like that. Because those kind of statistics are really important when we go to the representative office and say, hey, we got a problem, here's the data, this is what we want to do. But again, it's a big problem and we have to start right here, locally with the cleaning the voter rolls.
Right,
Thank you.
okay. And then my second one is, so Walls just signed the bill that makes it legal for illegals to get a legal driver's license.
Yes.
Will they be able to use those to register to vote and use them as ID?
If you went,
Illegal.
I'm going to give you a very depressing answer.
Mhm.
If you voted at the last election and you walked up to the table,
They
you
don't
gave,
even look at my driver's
That's
license.
right.
Yeah,
the first thing they said name, and then they look it up, and then they check it off, and they give you the ballot, and then you move on.
right,
If you were an illegal, you would have got that bill. All you had to do, not registered, you're just, let me see your utility bill, and then you're in. So yes, we got a problem, this is a big problem.
Right.
And this is what happens. But we can despair, or we can start grassroots, and we can work this way up. The grassroots approach is very difficult, but it's much more potent. Because as one slide said, politicians are not very brave. They don't lead parades. They see a parade and they get into the parade. We've got to give them a parade. Yes, did I answer all your questions?
Got something for her too.
Oh, please.
A lot of people don't realize this. I live in Castle Rock Township. Okay, we just had our annual elections a week or so ago, second Tuesday of March. And obviously, I've lived there 50 years. I know everybody, they know everybody, but their concern, some of the judges, they're election judges. Their concern is if somebody moves into the township who is an illegal immigrant and they have a driver's license showing a Castle Rock address, that they will be able to vote.
Right.
So there's a lot of concern about that.
So,
I asked some of these judges, what are you gonna do? They go, we don't know what to do. And that's not a good answer when you're talking about elections.
it's a horrible deal. And it's exactly in our Block A, we have two blocks, Block A and Block B. Block A was election integrity. Second block was the federal. But it's such a hot topic and it's so germane to what we're talking about. So important.
When I say election, it's for the board of supervisors. It's like your city council in every township.
Yeah.
They have one.
Yeah.
And you're also setting your levy that day for the next year. The levy that Castle Rock Township's working on right now was set in 22. So it's a year off. But it's a very important election on a statewide basis, and they don't have answers.
No.
And that's part of my French bullshit.
Well, and to put a little slightly different point on it, this, what you're talking about, this is all intentional. This isn't by accident that we're doing. This isn't by accident. It's because we have been busy with our lives, with our families, with our careers, and we've trusted. And this has gone on for decades. Not everybody is like that. The very small percentage of people that are activists, they're in there, they love this. But for some, we don't do it that way. But now it's our time. It's our time. Thank you. Anybody else with a question? Yes, sir.
I was talking, is it Rick or Rich?
Rick.
Okay, we were talking, both of them are trap shooting coaches. I grew up with firearms. I don't want to offend anybody here. there's a point I want to make. I grew up hunting with my uncles and whatever, and we were taught the proper use of firearms. I've been a firearms instructor. I've been coaching trap shooting between University of Minnesota 4-H shooting sports and the high school program now for over 20 years. I've coached hundreds of kids. Currently, I'm coaching Minneapolis Washburn. I'm very proud of that because I'm teaching kids how to handle firearms in a proper manner. I'm just going to say it, when I see some of the law or some of the provisions that they're pushing on the federal and state level to eliminate firearms from our society, that's what I'm seeing. And when I hear our president make comments, the Second Amendment was enacted because we had just pulled away from a tyrannical monarchy, and they were still on the continent with us. And another one to the southwest called Spain. So the Second Amendment was about protecting our nation, the citizens doing that, being armed and doing that, or our own government in the future if it became tyrannical. About, I don't know what these AR-15 guys think they're gonna do against F-16s. I get a little nervous. So I'm just saying, try and support. There's times I feel like these mass shootings, which when I was a kid, I don't remember them. There's a lot of illness in our society. But when I see our elected officials using those to promote gun control, I feel bad for the kids because they're victims all a second. Or, the people. That's my statement.
Thank you. Thank you. Heartfelt. Any other questions? Yes, ma'am.
So this helps with like federal government, but what about our state? Because I think our state's kind of crazy.
You're
Oh
right.
my God.
I mean, you know, the laws that they're doing in the state are worse than what they're doing in the federal government. So how do we stop that?
They're trying to be California.
Well, if I voted and I called and they didn't even register my vote because probably of what side I was on.
We went backwards with this election.
Yeah.
I'm gonna say, I talked to Mr. Garofalo, I consider him a friend. He's very disappointed on what's going on and doesn't know how to really fight it. I shouldn't have said that, but he texts me on occasion and he's like, he told me once, he said, I kinda wish I'd run this time. It's just crazy. We can't move forward.
Yeah,
We're going backwards.
it's tough. Can I address the state question? So, the design of the federal government was designed that the 10th Amendment clearly states that any, except for the powers enumerated in this document or not enumerated, are solely to the jurisdiction of the states and the people. So the 10th Amendment clearly states that the federal government shouldn't be doing something. So when Ray was talking about earlier about the Obamacare, the Affordable Care Act, it's 14,000 pages. So who wrote 14,000 pages? Does anybody have a guess? Special interests. So they are circling like vultures. It's called K Street. I don't know if you've heard the K Street lobbying, right? So they wrote that. Now, why am I bringing this up? So in 1938, when they passed the Social Security Administration Act, it was only 14 pages, and you could read it, you could understand what it is. Now, the reason I bring this up is the federal government, through this process, has created all this funding. So 60% of whatever happens locally is actually controlled by the federal government because this library wants the money. Your school district wants the money. The DOT wants the money. So you want them to have the money because it makes them look good. And so what happens is they become paid patsies indirectly. So what's happening today? The states that are booming, Texas, can only meet their legislature twice a year, and for the first month of their meetings, they can't pass any laws until they review everything. So they have a constitution that requires them. People are voting with their feet, and that's what that's what will happen. So once there's this competitive thing between states, it forces it. But until we kind of drain some of the money issues, this federal money creates this huge distortion. You got Illinois, you got this. You think about the budget of the state. So that is part of the problem. So this is why the federal overreach and the spending thing is very important to this process.
Thank you, John. Any other questions? Did you get your question answered?
Yes.
To the best we can. Anybody else?
I guess, yeah.
Yes, sir.
Along those lines, I'm just trying to figure out too, because like my family are in Wisconsin and they have, I think they might have been one of the states that passed it, but
Yeah.
just from a like strategic viewpoint, like, because my mind goes to, well, it's not going to get passed with all of our branches being controlled by Democrats, because I'm guessing they're not going to go for this. But that might not be the right. That might not be the right mentality. But what you're saying is, if we can, like, kind of pressure the local counties to clean up their act with the voter rolls, that could help future elections be more integrous. Is that the right way to look at that?
Yes, I
And then
believe so.
our chances of electing, because I'm in Apple Valley and I have 2 Democrat, like I don't have Republican representatives or senators. So like all of my probes and whatnot to them just to me seem to go nowhere.
Sure.
But because I can see people pushing back with the same like, well, what's the point? So I'm trying to be able to express or explain the strategy or the logic as to what we have to do.
Yeah, there's a couple things there. Let me make a few points here. So the first point is, you're right. It is a very difficult task to do. So we're trying to build momentum. So one of the things is we don't have a George Soros. We don't have the Koch brothers. We don't have anybody sponsoring us. We believe that you, the people, should be involved in your government, and you're busy. And the best way to keep government out of it is to limit it, right? I mean, you don't really need a lot of supervision, but for some reason, people think you do. Now, what's gonna happen, which will be really interesting, is if we do have a convention, it will be the biggest news ever. And so as they do it and they have the convention, additional momentum will drive it. And even if we don't pass, all of this will become news and more people will be done and there will be other attempts to it. So, it's just, we'll keep swinging at it. So don't think that it's one and done. The other thing I want to really point out about this whole concept is when you think about what we're trying to do, we're really trying to pull back a lot of things like people vote on wedge issues. So you have certain issues you vote on and you stick with them. And as, I'm trying to figure out how to say this without messing it up because it's really a nuanced way of thinking about it, is if we do have the convention and that debate occurs, for example, notice it says overreach and constraints. For example, the thing about elections, why do we have elections in March and November? Why don't we all have them in November? And why don't you pay your taxes in October so you're reminded when you go to vote what's happening? So all of this has been, gamed, in other words, manipulated in a particular way. So we feel that once we get to that we get to the point where we've got the 2/3 to have the convention, this will take off. Oh, now I remember the point I want to make, which is this year, a particular representative from the 1st District of Florida, Matt Getz, and a small group held the speakership hostage. And the one thing they wanted, which was the first time since the 1970s, is we want to vote on term limits. Now, isn't that funny that they had to hold that position hostage? But you see, we're getting people in position, both elected and not, and that caused a big row. And now for the first time, it won't happen, term limits won't happen from that one vote, but we are gonna get a vote on term limits in the House for the first time, probably in 40 years.
Thank you, John. Politicians do not lead parades. They follow them. So it's up to us. We have to make the parade. And it's a thing that it's only going to come out of our emphasis, out of our work.
And once the convention would be called, because I was a delegate, and one of the guys that was in the room who was against it, which I wasn't confident enough, but I was pretty sure he was wrong. Once it's called, then each state, because he was trying to say that, well, then California's just going to rewrite it because it's going to be based on your rep. That's not true,
No.
correct?
So what happens, California could send a delegation of 30 people. Wisconsin could send a delegation of 3 people. Each state only gets one vote.
So that was something I was gonna bring up, is I feel like I've already seen, and as the movement gains momentum and becomes a threat, there's the smear campaign against convention of states.
Absolutely.
That then it becomes a free-for-all and, horrible things will happen.
There are forces that like things the way they are. We called them nicely.
And want things more their way. Than
Administrative state, they do not want this to happen. I'm going to call them demonic. The forces are going to come out of the woodwork and they're going to do everything in their abilities, anything, to stop this because this is their way of life.
I feel like they're already, quietly embedded and just kind of waiting and watching, and they're very subversive, and they're the ends justify the means.
The polls show that we have the majority, but the majority is not used to this stuff.
Right.
We're used to our families and our careers and our lives. We're not used to, but we've got to change that. We've got to get active. That's the only way we have a chance.
I'm not saying we should fight dirty, but we should definitely fight back when they're fighting dirty, which we don't do a good job of, I don't think either.
Yeah. Any other questions?
You know, Judicial Watch has cleaned up holes, they've been suing to clean up
Yes.
holes.
Yes,
They're doing a good job.
yes,
So we want
yes,
to support them.
yes. Any other questions? Well, we're going to be here for a little while if anybody wants to hang out. We start on time and we end on time. So please introduce yourselves, talk if you want, or leave if you'd like. Thanks so much for your time and attention. Sign the petition, sign the postcard, become a volunteer and contribute, please.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ray.
Yes, sir.
What, we gonna be on mic.
Here, let me get this off.